Millionaire CEO discovers the waitress secretly taught his daughter advanced math. Truth stuns him. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to the main character. Jack Anderson, a CEO and millionaire, had built his empire from the ground up. He was used to being in control, always making decisions with precision, and running a business that spanned across the globe. His life was all about logic, strategy, and power. Jack was the kind of man who valued success above all else, and the people around him were mere players in his grand game. As he sat in the upscale Manhattan restaurant, sipping on his expensive whiskey, his mind wandered to the latest business deal he was about to close. He looked around at the patrons of the restaurant, but his gaze never lingered on anyone. He had bigger things to worry about. The door chimed, and in walked Emily Miller, the waitress who had been serving him that evening. She wasn't extraordinary, just another face in the crowd. Or so he thought. Jack had never paid much attention to her, until tonight. He had watched her from the corner of his eye as she worked, moving with a quiet grace and efficiency. But there was something about her. Maybe it was the way she carried herself, or the way she seemed to always be one step ahead, anticipating the needs of the customers before they even asked. He didn't know it yet, but that evening, everything would change. As Emily approached his table with the check, Jack's daughter, Sophie, who was sitting beside him, asked a question about a difficult math problem she had been struggling with. Emily, overhearing the conversation, paused, and then casually walked over to their table. "If you don't mind me asking, Miss Sophie," Emily said, her voice calm and professional, "would you like some help with that math problem?" Sophie looked up at her, surprised, but nodded. Emily smiled and sat down next to Sophie, explaining the problem in a way that made it seem so simple. Jack watched, intrigued, as Emily guided Sophie through the steps, breaking down the complex math concepts and explaining them clearly. Within minutes, Sophie had solved the problem, and Jack was left speechless. He had always thought of Emily as just a waitress, a part of the background of his life, but what he saw now made him realize that he had misjudged her completely. As Sophie beamed with pride, Jack couldn't help but ask, "How do you know so much about math?" Emily hesitated for a moment, but then, with a quiet confidence, she replied, "I used to teach high school math. I had to leave to take care of my family, but I've always kept up with my passion for teaching." Jack blinked, taken aback. "You were a teacher?" he asked, disbelief in his voice. Emily nodded, and for the first time that evening, Jack saw her not just as a waitress, but as someone with a hidden talent, someone who had given up her dreams to take care of her family. The revelation left him stunned. He couldn't believe it. A simple waitress had just taught his daughter advanced math with the kind of expertise he'd expect from a highly trained professional. As he sat there, trying to process what had just happened, he realized that he had underestimated her, and in doing so, he had underestimated the potential of those around him. Sophie, who had been so excited about solving the problem, looked up at her father and said, "Daddy, I want to learn more from Emily. She's really good at explaining things." Jack felt a lump form in his throat. For the first time in a long while, he realized that the world wasn't just about power and wealth. It was about understanding and connecting with people, no matter their background. Jack turned to Emily and said, "I'm sorry. I didn't know. You've got a gift, and I'd like to offer you a job, something that truly values your talent." Emily shook her head. "Thank you, but I'm happy where I am. Teaching my daughter, though, that would be a great honor." Jack smiled, knowing that he had just learned one of the most valuable lessons of his life. Sometimes, the most extraordinary people are the ones we least expect. Jack sat back in his chair, still processing the unexpected turn of events. Emily, the waitress he had always dismissed as just another employee, had just revealed a hidden talent that left him astounded. He had known nothing about her past, nothing about the life she had once led before the reality of responsibility had pushed her into the role of a waitress. As he watched her work, teaching his daughter Sophie, he realized how much he had underestimated people based on their job titles. The realization hit him hard. Jack, the man who controlled a billion-dollar empire, had never thought twice about those who worked for him. He never considered that someone like Emily, a person he thought of as part of the background, could possess the kind of knowledge and skill that could change his daughter's life. Sophie, beaming with pride after solving the math problem, turned to Jack with excitement in her eyes. "Dad, can Emily teach me more?" "She's amazing," Sophie said, her words filling Jack with a sense of awe. He had never seen Sophie so eager to learn something new. The fact that Emily had sparked this passion in her was something Jack had never expected. Maybe we could work something out, Jack thought, his mind racing with possibilities. He couldn't help but feel a sense of guilt. He had assumed that the people around him, especially those who worked in service jobs, were just there to serve him, to do what he demanded, and nothing more. But now, as he observed Emily, he realized how wrong he had been. Emily wasn't just a waitress. She was a woman with a gift that she had put aside for the sake of her family. He thought about the years she must have spent, teaching students, shaping minds, before life led her down this unexpected path. Jack's mind shifted. I can't let her go back to being just a waitress, he thought. There was more to her than what met the eye. He had to do something to make it right. As the evening wore on, Jack found himself increasingly drawn to the idea of giving Emily an opportunity. He didn't know what it would look like, but he knew she deserved more than what she had. He couldn't just let this moment pass. Later, as the restaurant emptied out and the last customers left, Jack walked over to Emily, who was cleaning the counter. He cleared his throat, and she turned, her face neutral but polite, as it always was. "Emily," he began, his voice sincere, "I've been thinking about what you did for Sophie. It's clear to me now that you have a lot more to offer than just being a waitress. I'd like to offer you a chance to put those talents to use in a way that benefits you." Emily's eyes widened slightly, and she looked at him with a mixture of surprise and caution. "What are you suggesting?" she asked, her voice steady, though there was a hint of skepticism. Jack took a deep breath. "I want you to consider working for me, not as a waitress, but in a position where you can truly use your knowledge and skills. You've got a rare gift, Emily, and it would be a waste for you to keep it hidden." Emily paused, looking at Jack for a long moment, as though weighing his words. "I appreciate the offer, but I've got my responsibilities here," she said quietly, a touch of humility in her voice. "My family comes first, and this job, it's what I can do for now." Jack felt a pang of respect for her. She wasn't looking for fame or fortune. She was driven by a sense of duty and love for her family. "I understand," he said, his voice softened, "but I want you to know that the offer is there. If you ever change your mind, I'm happy to discuss it further." Emily gave him a small smile, the kind of smile that was both grateful and reserved. "Thank you, Jack," she replied, her voice quiet but firm. "But for now, this is where I'm meant to be." Jack nodded, his admiration for her growing. He could see it now, how much she had sacrificed, how much she had to offer. He walked away from the table that night with a renewed sense of purpose. Emily had changed something inside him. He had spent so much of his life focused on the wrong things. Now, he understood that true value wasn't always measured by wealth or power. It was in the people who silently changed the lives of others without ever asking for recognition. Days passed, and Jack couldn't shake the conversation he had with Emily that night. He found himself replaying her words over and over in his mind. She was more than just a waitress. She was a woman who had sacrificed her dreams for the sake of her family. That realization had struck him deeply, far deeper than he had expected. Jack was used to being the one in control, the one who made decisions that impacted everyone around him. But this was different. He had been humbled. It wasn't about the money or the prestige anymore. It was about recognizing the true value in people, in their talents, and in their character. He spent the next few days thinking about Emily, wondering how someone with so much to offer could be overlooked. He had seen the spark in her, the potential she had to make a real difference in the world. But she had resigned herself to a life of service, working in a job that didn't even begin to reflect her capabilities. Sophie continued to ask about Emily every day. She would mention how much she enjoyed the brief moments of math lessons, how Emily made learning fun and accessible. Jack could see how much his daughter valued her, and that only deepened his resolve. He had to do something. The following weekend, Jack made up his mind. He would go to the restaurant again, not as a customer, but as someone who wanted to make a change. He had already arranged for his personal assistant to schedule a meeting with Emily, But he knew that the only way to truly understand her and her potential was to see her in her element. It was a Saturday evening when Jack walked into the restaurant, looking around for Emily. She was in the midst of a busy shift, her movements fluid and efficient, a natural at managing the chaos of the evening rush. She barely acknowledged his presence as he took a seat at a quiet corner table, but Jack could see her glancing in his direction every so often. She was aware of him, but she wasn't going to make a fuss. She was doing her job. As Jack sat there, he noticed the way the other staff interacted with her, respectfully, but with a certain reverence. They all knew that Emily was different. She wasn't just a waitress. She was the backbone of the restaurant, holding everything together with her grace and intelligence. After a few moments, Emily approached his table with a smile, though it was clear that she was still focused on the task at hand. "What can I get for you, Mr. Anderson?" she asked, her tone polite but professional. Jack studied her for a moment before speaking. "Emily, I've been thinking a lot about our conversation the other night," he began. She raised an eyebrow slightly, but didn't interrupt. "I've been trying to understand what it is that holds you back from doing more. You're an incredible person, Emily, and you shouldn't be hidden away in a job that doesn't even begin to show your true potential." Emily hesitated, her eyes flickering with something Jack couldn't quite place. Was it hesitation or something more? "I appreciate your kind words, Mr. Anderson," she said softly. "But this job, it's what I can do right now. It's how I'm able to support my family. That's enough for me." Jack leaned forward slightly, his expression serious. "But is it enough for you, really?" he asked. "I can offer you a chance to do something more. A chance to make a real impact, to use your talents for something greater." Emily shook her head gently. "I've made peace with where I am. My family comes first, and I'll do whatever it takes to make sure they're okay. That's what matters most." Jack sat back, absorbing her words. He had expected a different response, but he understood. She wasn't like the others he had worked with. She wasn't motivated by money or ambition. She had a deep sense of responsibility, a loyalty to her family that transcended everything else. But Jack couldn't let her go on living a life where her talents were wasted. "Emily," he said after a moment of silence, "I respect your decision, but I want you to know that the offer is there whenever you're ready. I'll be here, and I believe you deserve more than this." Emily met his gaze, her eyes soft but unwavering. "Thank you, Mr. Anderson," she replied, a small but genuine smile on her face. "But for now, I'm exactly where I need to be." Jack nodded, feeling a mixture of admiration and frustration. Emily was a woman of incredible strength and character, and it was clear that she would never be swayed by wealth or status. She had a purpose, and nothing was going to change that. As he left the restaurant that night, Jack felt something shift within him. He had learned an important lesson from Emily, one that would stay with him for the rest of his life. Sometimes, true strength lies not in what you can achieve, but in what you choose to give up for the sake of others. Weeks passed, and Jack couldn't stop thinking about Emily. Every time he drove past her restaurant, he found himself glancing over, wondering how she was doing. He couldn't shake the feeling that he had offered her something meaningful, but she had turned it down. It wasn't like him to be content with an unfinished chapter, especially one that had touched him so deeply. Jack had been around the world, met the most powerful people, and built a fortune that most could only dream of, but nothing had moved him like Emily's quiet strength. He realized, maybe for the first time, that his success had been built on a singular pursuit, power. But now, he wondered, what was power if it didn't give him the ability to make a difference in people's lives? One afternoon, Jack found himself sitting in his office, staring at his phone. He had just received an email about another investment opportunity, but his mind kept drifting back to Emily. She wasn't just a waitress. She had the potential to change the world, and he knew he couldn't let her slip away. He leaned back in his chair and hit the dial button for his assistant. "Call Emily Miller," he said, his voice firm. "Tell her I'd like to meet again, this time on my terms." His assistant hesitated for a moment, then replied, "I'll arrange it, sir." Jack hung up, feeling a sense of purpose settle over him. He wasn't going to let this opportunity pass by again. He couldn't. Later that week, Jack was back at the same restaurant, but this time, he wasn't just another customer. He had a plan. As he walked through the door, the familiar scent of fresh bread and brewed coffee hit him. The restaurant was quiet, with only a few patrons scattered about, but Emily was there, working with the same quiet grace he had noticed before. She didn't see him at first, but Jack saw her. She was carrying a tray of drinks, her movements quick but composed. Her eyes met his, and for a brief moment, there was a flicker of recognition. "Mr. Anderson," she said, her voice polite but reserved. "What can I get for you today?" Jack smiled, his eyes holding hers. "Actually, Emily," he said, "I'm not here for the food today. I'm here to talk about something else." Emily's expression remained neutral, though her brow furrowed slightly. "I'm listening," she said, placing the tray on a nearby table. "I wanted to apologize," Jack began. "I didn't fully understand what you were offering the other night, and I should have. But I do now. I don't want to make the same mistake again. I want you to take a chance, Emily. I can help you get back to teaching, to doing what you love, and I promise I won't let anything hold you back." Emily stood still for a moment, her gaze fixed on him. Jack could see the wheels turning in her mind, but she wasn't jumping to any conclusions just yet. "You really think that's what I want?" she asked quietly. Jack nodded. "I know it's what you deserve." She hesitated, her eyes shifting to the side as if weighing her options. Then, she looked back at him, her expression softening. "It's not that simple," she said. "I've made choices for a reason. I can't just walk away from everything." Jack's heart clenched, but he didn't back down. "I understand," he said, his voice low. "But you don't have to walk away. You just have to give yourself the chance to live the life you've been holding back from. I'm offering you an opportunity to have both, your family, your passion, and the career you've always wanted." Emily sighed, running a hand through her hair. "I don't know," she said, her voice tinged with uncertainty. "I'm not sure I'm ready for all of that." Jack could feel the weight of her words, but he wasn't going to let her turn away. "You don't have to be ready right now," he said gently. "But think about it. The door is open, and it's yours if you choose to walk through it." Emily looked down for a moment, lost in thought. Jack waited in silence, giving her the space she needed. Finally, she raised her head, meeting his gaze. "I'll think about it," she said softly, her tone carrying the faintest hint of hope. Jack smiled. "That's all I'm asking for." As Jack left the restaurant that evening, he felt a sense of satisfaction, knowing he had done the right thing. Emily had been given the chance to choose her own path, and it was up to her now. But Jack knew one thing for certain. He had given her the option, and that was something he had never done for anyone else before. Weeks went by, and Jack's offer lingered in Emily's mind, a silent question hanging in the air between them. She went about her daily routine at the restaurant, serving customers with the same quiet efficiency, but there was a restlessness beneath the surface. She had always known what she had given up in order to take care of her family, but she had never realized how much she missed teaching, how much she longed to make a real difference in someone's life. Sophie continued to ask about her, each question a reminder of the spark that Emily had lit in her that night. The lessons, the encouragement, the way Emily made complicated problems seem simple, all of it stayed with Sophie, and Emily couldn't help but feel a sense of pride in the way she had helped the young girl. But pride alone wasn't enough to change everything. Emily had responsibilities, and those responsibilities meant putting aside her own dreams for the sake of her family. She had always thought that was the right choice, that sacrifice was part of being a good mother and daughter. But now, something inside her was shifting. She couldn't ignore the pull of her own desires any longer. Jack's words echoed in her mind. "You deserve more than this." She hadn't forgotten the way he looked at her that night, the way he saw her, not as just a waitress, but as someone with value, with something to offer. It wasn't the first time someone had acknowledged her potential, but it felt different coming from him. Maybe it was because he wasn't asking for anything in return. He genuinely wanted to give her a chance to be more than what she was. That thought had haunted her. Could she take the chance? Could she walk away from the safety of what she knew and step into something uncertain, something bigger? One evening, Emily found herself standing in front of the mirror at the restaurant, her apron still on, her hair pulled back in the same simple ponytail she always wore. She stared at her reflection, wondering if she was ready to face the decision that had been building inside her for weeks. It wasn't just about the job. It was about her life, her future, and whether she would continue to let fear hold her back. As she stood there, lost in thought, her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out and saw that it was a text from Jack. Asterisk, "I'm having dinner at the restaurant tomorrow. Let's talk again. No pressure. Just think about it." Emily felt a strange sense of calm wash over her. There it was again, the opportunity. It was there, waiting for her to take it. The next day, Emily arrived at work early, the familiar smell of coffee and fresh pastries filling the air. She didn't know what she was going to say to Jack, but she knew it was time to make a choice. As the restaurant began to fill with customers, she spotted Jack at a corner table, just as he had been the first time. He was waiting for her. She walked over, her heart pounding in her chest. He looked up as she approached, his expression softening when their eyes met. "Emily," he said, his voice warm but firm. "Thank you for meeting me again. I know you've been thinking about this. You don't have to make a decision right away, but I want you to know that the offer is still on the table." Emily took a deep breath, her mind racing. The safety of her current life called to her, but so did the possibility of something greater. She met his gaze and nodded slowly. "I've thought about it a lot," she said, her voice steady but unsure. "And I think I'm ready to take that chance. I'm ready to do more." Jack smiled, a look of relief crossing his face. "I'm glad to hear that," he said softly. "I promise you, Emily, this will be worth it. You have a future waiting for you, one that you've earned. Let's make it happen." As they spoke, Emily felt a weight lift from her shoulders. She had made the decision. It wasn't just about her. It was about her family, her future, and finally giving herself the chance to live the life she had always dreamed of. With Jack's support, Emily knew that she could do anything. She was no longer just a waitress. She was a woman with a future, and it was time to embrace it. As the evening wore on and the last customers left the restaurant, Emily stood at the counter, looking out the window at the bustling streets of Manhattan. For the first time in a long while, she felt at peace. She had taken the first step toward something bigger, something better, and she was ready for whatever came next. As Emily sat across from Jack in the sleek, modern conference room at Anderson Capital, she couldn't help but feel a sense of disbelief. Just a few months ago, she had been waiting tables at a small restaurant, wondering if she would ever be able to break free from the life she had built for herself out of necessity. Now, here she was, in one of the most prestigious buildings in Manhattan, with a future ahead of her that seemed almost impossible. Jack was sitting across from her, looking at her with an intensity that made her stomach flutter. He had been incredibly supportive from the moment she agreed to take his offer, but she still felt like she was playing catch-up in this new world. "Emily, you don't have to feel like you're on the back foot here," Jack said, his voice steady and reassuring. "You have every right to be here, and I'm confident that you're going to thrive in this role. We've got a team here that's ready to support you." Emily nodded, trying to steady her nerves. She had always been the type to work hard, to push through difficult situations. But this was different. This was a chance to use her skills in a way that she had never imagined. She had always believed in her abilities, but had never had the opportunity to truly apply them. Now, the doors were wide open. "I know I have a lot to learn," Emily said, her voice quiet but determined. "But I'm ready for it. I want to prove that I can do more than what I've been doing." Jack smiled, leaning forward slightly. "I don't doubt that for a second. I've seen what you can do. And you're not just here to be a consultant or an advisor. You're here to make a real impact." Emily felt a weight lift off her shoulders at his words. It was strange, hearing someone speak to her like this, with such faith in her potential. It wasn't something she was used to, but it was exactly what she needed. "Thank you, Jack," she said, her voice filled with gratitude. "I don't know if I've ever truly believed in myself the way I should have, but I'm going to make sure I do now." Jack nodded, his expression thoughtful. "That's exactly what I want to hear. This company, this team, it's all about pushing the boundaries, about doing things that others might not think are possible. And I think you're going to fit in perfectly here." Emily felt a sense of calm settle over her as she listened to him. This was it. This was the moment she had been waiting for. She wasn't just going to survive, she was going to thrive. Over the next few weeks, Emily dived into her new role with everything she had. She worked closely with Jack, offering insights and ideas that no one had expected from a former waitress. She helped the team develop strategies that were both innovative and practical, and her natural ability to see patterns in data impressed everyone around her. Jack watched with admiration as Emily grew into her new role. She was everything he had hoped for: smart, driven, and unafraid to speak her mind. She had quickly become an integral part of the team, and Jack knew that he had made the right choice in offering her this opportunity. As the months passed, Emily began to feel more at home in her new life. She had her own office now, her own team to lead, and she was doing the kind of work she had always dreamed of. Her confidence grew with each success, and she found herself thinking about her family, about how much this opportunity would mean for them. But it wasn't just about the job anymore. It was about her, about who she was becoming. She was no longer just the quiet waitress from the small restaurant. She was Emily Miller, a force to be reckoned with in the business world. One evening, as Emily wrapped up a meeting with her team, Jack walked into her office. "How's everything going?" he asked, his voice warm. Emily looked up, a smile spreading across her face. "It's going great," she replied, feeling a sense of pride in her voice. "I'm actually starting to feel like I belong here." Jack smiled, his eyes glinting with approval. "I knew you would. You've got the right mindset, Emily. You've always had it. It just took the right opportunity to show the world what you're capable of." Emily's smile grew wider, and for the first time in a long while, she felt truly seen. Not just as a waitress, not just as a mother or a daughter, but as someone with real potential, someone who was making a difference. She had come a long way since that night when Jack first saw her, and she knew that this was only the beginning. Months passed, and Emily found herself adjusting more and more to her new life. Her office had become a familiar space, one where she could spread out her work, think creatively, and engage with her team in ways she never thought possible. The transition hadn't been easy at first. There were moments when she questioned whether she truly belonged in the high-powered world of business that Jack had welcomed her into. But with each passing day, her confidence grew. She had started to see the impact of her work. The strategies she helped develop were bringing in results. The team was thriving under her guidance. And most importantly, she felt fulfilled in a way she hadn't in years. Her family was proud of her, especially her daughter Sophie, who was now excelling in her studies, often coming home with questions for Emily that challenged her in ways she hadn't expected. Every night, after dinner, they would sit together, working through problems, the bond between them growing stronger with each lesson. One evening, as Emily sat in her office reviewing the latest financial projections, Jack walked in, a familiar presence that still carried the same air of authority it had the first time they met. "I wanted to catch you before you leave for the day," Jack said, walking over to her desk. Emily looked up, a little surprised to see him, though she quickly masked her reaction with a smile. "Everything all right?" she asked, setting down the report she had been looking at. Jack took a seat across from her, his usual composed demeanor slipping slightly as he leaned forward. "I've been thinking," he started, his voice more thoughtful than usual. "You've really stepped up here, Emily. I'm impressed with how much you've accomplished in such a short time. But I think it's time for the next step. I'm offering you a more prominent position, one where your influence can reach further." Emily blinked, her heart skipping a beat. A more prominent position? She had come so far from the woman she had been, the woman who had once believed her future was limited to waiting tables and barely scraping by. Now, Jack was offering her an even greater opportunity. "What kind of position are you talking about?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper, as though she were afraid to ask the question out loud. Jack smiled, recognizing the hesitation in her voice. "I want you to join the executive team, Emily. I know you've been working wonders with the team, but now it's time for you to have a seat at the table. You'll be leading the strategy division, taking charge of some of our most important initiatives." Emily sat back in her chair, stunned. She had never imagined herself in such a position, let alone leading the strategy division. She had come so far already, but this was beyond anything she could have dreamed. She had to pinch herself to make sure she wasn't imagining it. "I don't know what to say," Emily replied, her voice catching in her throat. "You don't have to say anything right now," Jack said, his tone calm and reassuring. "I know this is a lot to take in, but think about it. I wouldn't offer you this if I didn't believe in you. You've shown me time and time again that you're capable of more than you give yourself credit for." Emily felt a wave of emotion wash over her, a mix of excitement and disbelief. She had worked so hard, and now, she was being given an opportunity she never thought she'd have. This was the moment she had been waiting for. "I'll need some time to think," she said finally, her voice steady despite the whirlwind of thoughts in her mind. Jack nodded, understanding. "Take all the time you need," he said. "I know you'll make the right decision." As Jack left her office, Emily sat there for a moment, her hands shaking slightly. This was it. The opportunity of a lifetime. the chance to build the future she had always wanted. She had always wondered if she could truly step into a world of power and influence, and now she was being given the chance to prove it. As she looked out the window, watching the city lights twinkle below, Emily made a decision. She was ready to take the next step, ready to embrace her future. No longer the waitress, no longer the woman who doubted her worth. She was Emily Miller, and this was just the beginning. Emily stood in front of the mirror, adjusting her blouse for the third time that morning. Today was the day she would step into her new role, fully embracing the opportunity that Jack had given her. She had taken her time to think, to process everything. The weight of her decision felt heavy, but the excitement in her chest outweighed any lingering doubts. She had spent her whole life playing it safe, staying in the background, but not anymore. As she walked into the conference room, she was greeted by the familiar faces of her new team. They looked at her with respect, with anticipation, and she felt a spark of confidence surge within her. She wasn't the same woman who had walked into Jack's office months ago. She was someone different now, someone who had fought for her place at this table, and she wasn't going to let it slip away. The room was filled with the hum of quiet conversations as she took her seat at the head of the table. Jack, sitting across from her, gave her a nod of encouragement. Emily returned the gesture with a smile, her nerves replaced by determination. "All right, team," Emily began, her voice steady and clear. "We've got a lot of work ahead of us, but I'm confident that we can make an impact. Let's get started." The room fell silent, all eyes on her. Emily knew this was her moment to prove herself, and she wasn't going to waste it. She launched into the presentation, outlining the strategies she had been working on, her ideas flowing with ease. The team listened intently, nodding along as she spoke, and Emily could feel the energy in the room shift. They weren't just hearing her words, they were believing in them. As the meeting went on, Emily found herself growing more comfortable in the role. She could see the wheels turning in her team's heads, their enthusiasm building with each idea she presented. It was clear they respected her, and she realized that the respect she had earned wasn't just because of Jack's endorsement. It was because of her own abilities. When the meeting ended, Jack stood up, clapping his hands once, a proud smile on his face. "Well done, Emily," he said, his voice filled with admiration. "You've got the team's attention, and you've got mine." Emily felt a rush of gratitude and pride. This was just the beginning, and she was ready for whatever came next. She had proven to herself that she could do this, that she could lead, that she could make a difference. As the team filtered out of the room, Emily stayed behind for a moment, taking in the view of the city from the windows. She had come so far, and it was all starting to feel real. She was no longer just a waitress in a restaurant. She was a woman at the helm of something important, something that could change everything. She took a deep breath, her heart full of hope and excitement for the future. She had a purpose now, a mission, and it was only just beginning. Back at home later that evening, Sophie was sitting at the kitchen table, doing her homework. When Emily walked in, Sophie looked up, her eyes bright. "How was your first day, Mom?" she asked eagerly. Emily smiled, sitting down beside her daughter. "It was amazing, sweetie," she said, her voice filled with pride. "I think this is going to be the start of something great." Sophie beamed, her face lighting up with happiness. "I knew you could do it, Mom. I'm so proud of you." Emily's heart swelled at her daughter's words. She had come so far, and now, more than ever, she knew that she was exactly where she was meant to be. She was doing what she was always meant to do, making a difference, not just for herself, but for her family, for everyone around her. And she was ready to take on the challenges ahead, no matter what they were. Emily stood in her office, staring at the skyline of Manhattan as the sun set behind the towering buildings. It had been months since she had stepped into this new life, and she had already achieved so much more than she could have ever imagined. The weight of responsibility that had once felt so daunting now felt like a challenge she could easily take on. As the head of the strategy division, she had helped the company reach new heights, launching initiatives that brought in record profits and solidified their position as a leader in the industry. Jack had been right. She was capable of far more than she had ever realized. She had earned the respect of her colleagues, and more importantly, she had earned her own respect. But it wasn't just about the work. Emily had changed in ways she hadn't expected. She had become a stronger, more confident woman, unafraid to stand her ground and speak her mind. She had found a balance between her career and her family, spending quality time with Sophie, who was now excelling in school, just like her mother had always dreamed. Life wasn't perfect, of course. There were still challenges to face, still moments of doubt and fear. But Emily knew now that she was capable of handling whatever came her way. Her success had never been about just achieving career milestones. It had been about proving to herself that she was worthy of the life she now had. One evening, as Emily walked into her apartment after a long day at work, she found Sophie sitting at the kitchen table, a stack of textbooks spread out in front of her. Sophie looked up and smiled, her eyes shining with excitement. "Mom, I solved this problem by myself," she said, holding up her math book. Emily smiled, walking over to her daughter and taking a seat beside her. "I'm so proud of you, sweetie," Emily said, kissing her daughter on the forehead. "You're amazing." Sophie beamed, and for a moment, Emily allowed herself to simply enjoy the quiet, contented feeling of being home, of being with her daughter, knowing that everything she had worked for had led her to this moment. It wasn't just about the promotions or the recognition from her peers. It was about the life she had built for herself and Sophie, a life filled with love, purpose, and fulfillment. As the days went by, Emily's sense of purpose grew stronger. She was no longer just going through the motions of her job. She was making an impact, not only in the company, but also in the lives of the people around her. She continued to mentor her team, helping them grow and develop in their careers just as she had. She also made time to give back to the community, using her knowledge and influence to support causes that mattered to her. One afternoon, as Emily was walking to her office, she received a call from Jack. "Hey, Emily," Jack said, his voice cheerful. "I wanted to congratulate you on the success of the latest project. Your team's performance has been outstanding." Emily smiled, feeling a surge of pride. "Thank you, Jack," she said. "I couldn't have done it without the support of the team. We're all in this together." Jack's voice softened slightly. "You've really proven yourself, Emily, and I'm glad to have you by my side." Emily's heart warmed at his words. She had come so far, and she knew this was just the beginning. As the years passed, Emily continued to grow in her career, taking on new challenges and opportunities. She remained grounded, always remembering where she came from and the sacrifices she had made along the way. But she had also come to understand that her worth was not defined by the title she held or the job she did. It was defined by the impact she made, the people she helped, and the legacy she left behind. Emily had become the woman she was always meant to be, and as she looked back on the journey she had taken, she knew that every step had been worth it. She had found her place in the world, not just as a leader, but as a mother, a mentor, and a person who had truly embraced her potential. And with that, Emily knew that her story wasn't over. It had only just begun.